Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of the Infectious Madness of Dr. Dekker. Let's go ahead and do the next day.
David Hunt,
I can change my skin.
then skins.
Dr. Dekker dated his patients.
I had a hot date.
We went out for drinks.
I took photos of Jessica.
Dr. Dekker did
On
phone
Valentine's Day.
and ask me for Nathan's number. There was a girl there. Am I right?
I'm sorry.
I'm allowed to talk to her, aren't I? He was preoccupied with finding
Photographs.
patterns.
Rocking chair.
I haven't been back to the beach since,
I had a bit of a shaky loop incident.
where I find something
I set fire
beautiful in the sea.
to Hannah's clothes in the garden. I dug the grave.
I wish I'd said goodbye.
Dr. Dekker cursed me.
It didn't weigh enough to have a body in it.
Oh, Doctor, you surprised me. Reminds me of Officer Yates. Did I ever mention I had a special friend in the police force? Nah, it's not something you drop politely into a conversation. He's been doing some digging and he's found a couple things. There's a crime scene report that goes into all the gory details and another report that's about a patient you're seeing today, Claire. I'll put them both on the desk for you. And thanks for
Thank
the
you.
grief counselling, by the way. It's really been helping, you know. I'm so glad you're here.
Spiked. Totally me incredibly uncomfortable if that happened to me. Alright. Hold on. So, we know that he died 14th February, Valentine's Day, as we already know. We don't have a first name. So he was in his office, sitting on a chair behind a desk, soaked in blood with an obvious chest wound. And the murder weapon is a paper spike. Time of death between 8:30 and 10:30 p.m. And he died of blood loss. Let's check. Claire arrest. Okay. To the statement of Christian Weber, police officer. To the best of my knowledge, this statement is true. I understand I may be prosecuted if I stated anything that I know to be untrue. At 8:40 p.m. on Tuesday, 8th November, myself and someone responded to a call received from a neighbor of the Bauer House, Weston Park Avenue, concerning a report in disturbance. We arrived at the address and knocked on the front door, but there was no reply. We then examined the rear of the property and gained entry through insecure patio doors. We entered the property through this door, and I announced myself by shouting "Police!" but did not hear any response. We searched the premises. Upon entering the dining room, I saw a female seated next to a man who was lying on the ground. The man did not appear to be conscious. Both persons were drenched in blood, and there was a substantial amount of blood on the carpet, walls, and furniture. I noted what appeared to be a steak knife on the floor, which was also covered in blood. At this point, I asked the woman to put her hands on her head, which she did. PC Holt secured the female while I checked the man for signs of life, but found none. I asked the woman her name, and she identified herself to me as Claire Castleford. I asked if she knew the dead man, and she said he was her husband, David Castleford. I asked what happened, and she said that she had killed him. Following a search by PC Holt, which revealed no other persons present at the house, I said to Castleford at 8:52, "You are under arrest on suspicions of murder." I then cautioned her and placed her in the back of the police car for transportation to Weston Park Police Station. And this was another thing that just blew my fucking mind. So, Claire.
I've been to the lake house regularly, keeping an eye on David. I saw the girl again, the one I told you about. She was playing outside.
Okay, Claire. So,
It makes for interesting reading, doesn't it? I could tell you're dying to ask me about it. Fire away.
there we go. Claire.
That's what it says. I can see you're confused.
A lot.
The police say that David is dead, fatally wounded when I stabbed him.
The coroner says that David is dead. Everyone says that David is dead. There was even a funeral. But I know he's alive.
You're like, what the fuck?
He's buried at Henley Church. You can go see for yourself. There's even a headstone. One of your other patients was a pallbearer. I never forget her face. You should ask him.
That's Bryce. We can guess that. So,
David wanted to have a talk about our relationship. Not something any married person wants to hear. He said he'd been with Iris for about a year and that he
holy
loved
shit.
her. He said he didn't love me anymore. Which I know is a lie. You don't just fall out of love with somebody. I reacted
Unfortunately,
badly.
you do.
I grabbed the nearest weapon I could find, which happened to be the steak knife, and stabbed him with it. There was so much blood. I instantly regretted it. So, I fixed him.
There you go.
It was about a week later. I brought David back to life. Not with voodoo, not with virginal sacrifice. I just willed it to happen, and it did. Dr. Dekker told me it was possible, but only if you're not buried. He says once you're in the ground, there's no coming back. But until then, you have a chance at resurrection.
Okay.
Yes, resurrection. But now that I've seen the results, I don't think there's anything holy about it. I think reanimation is more an accurate term. Like, I'm an evil necromancer raising things from the dead. I think his brain was already decaying during the week that he was dead. Important bits. So when I brought him back to life, I didn't heal him completely. Just gave him life in the state he was in. I mean, he's hunting and killing things and trying to roast them on fires he can only light with matches, but that's about it. He's your basic Neanderthal. So I have a problem.
There you are.
I'm being charged with murder because the police don't know he's still alive, and I can't get David to vouch for me for obvious reasons. I think it would raise quite a few more questions than answers, which is why I'm hoping that you'd be able to help me. Considering the circumstances, I'd be grateful if you could see your way to declaring me temporarily insane at the time of the murder, to lessen my sentence. Because I'm not a killer, but I can't prove otherwise. You don't still think I'm a killer, do you, Doctor?
Before I answer that, paper
It
spike.
sounds to me as if Dr. Dekker's murder was a spur-of-the-moment thing. If you were planning to kill someone, you'd bring a weapon with you, wouldn't you? I imagine that the paper spike made a very good weapon, though. It could look quite menacing, glinting in the moonlight.
What the fuck was that, Claire? Huh. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
So quick to jump to conclusion, Doctor. Obviously, I meant sunlight.
Holy shit. Oh my goodness. Oh my fucking goodness. Okay.
Thank you, Doctor. So then you'll help me. You'll say I was temporarily insane.
Let me just
Bryce
do
was
this.
a pallbearer for David. He's also a grave digger, I believe. Smuggling a body out of a funeral can be difficult,
Here we are.
unless you pay the right people. Thank you, Doctor. That's all I needed to hear. From you or Dr. Dekker. But Dr. Dekker wouldn't do that for me. He wanted something else. Dr. Dekker teased me mercilessly about my alleged ability. He didn't believe I'd reanimated David. Once, he presented me with a dead mouse and commanded me to give it life again. I didn't, of course. It's not something I'd throw around lightly. He changed his mind about me eventually. And then he mentioned the girl.
What girl?
He told me he'd locked up a girl in the basement of his house.
Oh my gosh, I
Just
remember
for me.
this.
And he asked me to reanimate her. It was Iris. I said I couldn't reanimate something that wasn't dead, and he said that wouldn't be a problem. So I agreed. I just played along. I was hoping it wasn't real. I assumed it wasn't real. But he was offering me what I wanted, a temporary insanity diagnosis. It didn't happen. Dr. Dekker called me from his house to cancel. He was furious. He said that Iris had escaped, and he blamed me for it. He said that I must have set her free after he told me about her. I knew it was all lies anyways. He was obviously titillating himself by reprimanding me. He knew I'd never want to speak to Iris again, so I couldn't prove it either way. Dr. Dekker asked if I could prove David wasn't dead, so I took him to the lake house. He saw that I was telling the truth. I can take you to see him too, if you like. Would you like to see David, Doctor?
Okay.
Very well. In our next session.
My first playthrough, I didn't want to see him, and I won't spoil it because I don't know what's next since I've answered differently. So, Bryce.
Hello, Doctor. I've been thinking about our last session, and I just wanted you to know that I'm not a bad person. I know taking naked photographs is wrong, but you don't know what it's like until you face the same temptation. I'm assuming you don't know what it's like. Do you have an extra hour, Doctor? I'm actually a classically trained pallbearer. There are a lot of health and safety considerations. Not everybody can do it. Well, properly at least. Occasionally I step in if the funeral director is short-shouldered. I do remember her face. She wasn't upset in the usual way. She seemed agitated. Her husband must have been a giant. The coffin was so heavy. I remember because aft port side sprained his ankle. That and he wasn't lifting correctly. Nobody gave me the memo that Claire was telling everybody about our arrangement. Sometimes a few slip out the back for student use too.
What?
These things happen in all cemeteries. It's best not to broadcast it.
What the fuck?
Dr. Dekker frequently used that paper spike on his desk as an example. I'm sure he did it with the other patients too. He'd make me look at it, touch the point to see how sharp it was. He'd tell me that because I think it's sharp, it will hurt me. But if I thought it was nothing, it could pass right through my hand. I spied on Dr. Dekker not long before he was murdered. I'm not sure I should tell you what I saw in his basement.
There we go. It was a girl.
I'd been feeling uneasy with Dr. Dekker for some time. I mentioned how he'd changed before, so I began spying on him at home. One night, the basement door was open, and Dekker was returning upstairs. I skipped past him, and there she was, a girl. It was difficult to tell. It was dark, and she was chained. I removed the chains, dressed her, and sat her in the police station. There's no evidence, though. No evidence of what he'd done. But she was free. I saved her. I'm not evil. I destroyed evil. Thank God for that. There's someone else in my hour. A hooded figure. Watching me and following me. I followed it too. Whatever it is that's following me, it doesn't want to catch me yet. If I move towards it, it runs away. And when I follow it past temptations. A bar brawl, an open till, an open bedroom window. Like it's testing me.
What?
I don't know who it is. My initial thought was that it was you. That I told you about my affliction and somehow you'd got it too. Now I think maybe it's the military or some organization that wants to use the hour themselves. Maybe it's Dr. Dekker risen from the dead. I need to talk to you about him.
God damn it.
I'm surprised I haven't been approached earlier. I mean, my skills and the military. Special ops would be a breeze, wouldn't it? Waltz in past everyone during the midnight hour, get whatever you want, and return to friendly soil. It also makes me think that they might already know all of that, and that they want to get rid of me in case I tell anyone else. Would you do something for me if they get me? Would you tell Jessica I love her? She didn't really know me that well, but I did love her. And also, there's a hard drive in the bottom drawer of my drinks cabinet. Please destroy it. Please, don't look at it.
It's the photos.
I looked in. Watching other people is somehow built into our genes, Doctor. There was an old woman in bed. I went inside. Her bed covers were smoking. I think she'd fallen asleep holding a cigarette. I took the covers and put them in the bath. She'd have died otherwise. And no, I didn't take any pictures.
I didn't say anything, Bryce. Jaya.
I'm fine. I'm ready for my grief counselling. I emailed you Mariana's address. I don't know why you'd want it. I suppose you're going to start doing home visits now, like Dr. Dekker?
I won't do anything of the sort.
Grief is such a strange word if you keep saying it. Grief, grief, grief. It sounds like somebody's being whipped. And you're going to ask me how I feel today?
Well, what the fuck?
It's in that police report that I gave to you. You should really take a look at it.
I read it, asshole.
Some mornings I come into work and still expect him to be here. Sometimes it feels like he actually is here, watching over me. We had a connection. It's gone now, though. You can't have a connection with the dead, can you? Not for too long, anyway. Dr. Dekker asked me to have dinner with him for Valentine's. I refused, obviously, because you don't sleep where you eat or something like that. But it was flattering, especially with competition like Mariana around.
Whoa, she has no shoes on? What the fuck?
I was at home on my lonesome, Doctor, like I said before. Sorry, I didn't mean I was competing. I was happy Mariana was going out with him. I didn't want to be romantic with him. We had a stronger connection than that. Dr. Dekker and I shared some philosophy. We'd both read The Cult of the Kinetic Mind, and we agreed with a lot of what it said. Have you read that book, Doctor? In Cult of the Kinetic Mind, the author suggests that everyone is capable of psychokinesis and that the cult leaders specifically had these powers that turned their followers into disciples. It's not a fun read, but if you're into psychology, it's a blast. Psychokinesis is the ability to change the physical world without actually touching it, just by using your mind. It's not just about bending spoons. It covers all sorts of things like telepathy, telekinesis, telesabalas. Shoot me, I'm a Kojak fan.
You're speaking Chinese to me.
Like I said, all those cool things are in Cult of the Kinetic Mind, apart from Kojak, obviously. If you ever get a patient who thinks they can change the world with just their mind, then duck, just in case they can. But seriously, do a whole load of shrinking and make them better. Whether you believe in psychokinesis or not, you'll need to figure out your approach with those that do.
Fuck me.
How do you make people who think they have special powers better? Do you remain passive and support, encourage them, take them away? That's what I'd try to do.
There you go. My first playthrough, I answered that I needed to encourage them, and that's what I did. And she scolded me. And I was like, oh no, I've been playing this game wrong.
No, not at all in my experience. Dr. Dekker had an unusual number of patients who claimed psychokinesis. Either he'd been specifically looking for them or someone had been sending them.
Interesting.
It's entirely possible that someone is targeting this practice with psychokinetic patients. To what end, I don't know. It's no coincidence that most psychokinetic patients are diagnosed as insane, or at least temporarily insane. It's a handy diagnosis if you're facing criminal prosecution, especially if it's for murder.
Okay.
I think that's all settled now. We are agreeing to pay Ben £5,000 and he's agreeing not to say anything about what he saw.
Okay.
He thought he saw a creature
What?
coming out of Dr. Dekker's mouth. Well, at least that's the reason he's given for not emptying the bins that night. Either way, it's not the kind of publicity that we need. Shiny, happy, sane people.
What?
Yes, Dr. Dekker started doing home visits for Mariana. He said she couldn't concentrate properly in his office. I hope you're not thinking of doing the same thing. I need you right where I can see you. Checks and balances, Doctor. Somebody needs to be watching the watchman, so to speak. Make sure you're helping, not hindering.
There you go.
He probably did his fair share of helping and hindering. He was definitely helping in the beginning, but then seemed to lose sight of things.
Yep.
I think he was so overwhelmed by the patients he was getting. His curiosity just got the better of him. There was a definite turning point. Somewhere around the time Professor Alderby turned up, that seemed to unsettle him. And then we had a flood of extra weird patients. I think it was all too much for him. I think I misjudged him. I hope you deal with it better.
I hope so too. Alright, so remember Alderby is this thing? So again, I completely missed out on this my first playthrough, but now I'm putting together the puzzle pieces. Alderby, on the footage where he does the floating thing, and then Dekker's like super skeptical, and then Alderby asks, "Okay, where's your glass?" And then Dekker realizes that, holy shit, Alderby has powers. It's real. And that's when apparently Dekker's obsession with I forgot the name of the thing for the supernatural powers, for the mind powers that some people have began. So to my concern, says that it knows made to resign from my position. Who is Warwick? Well, I don't really need to talk to him, so I don't want to talk to him because it's not important. So I'm gonna skip him. Oh, I can't. Oh. Oof, okay. Nathan, how are you today?
I burned Hannah's rocking chair.
Good.
The day moved forward. It was a good choice. I'm not sure I've got much left of hers now. I've burnt most of it, or given it away, just to make the days move forward. There was a moment when I was attacking a Salvation Army bin. I gave in.
Okay.
I accidentally put Hannah's diary into a Salvation Army donation bin. They're like huge post boxes with a circular tray that makes sure things spill to the bottom. I tried to get in to get it back, but I gave up.
Okay.
I read the last few weeks of Hannah's diary a while ago. I must have accidentally dropped in some clothes for the Salvation Army bin. It's funny, because I wasn't going to read it. She said she'd fallen out of love with me. That she was going to break off the engagement. That she didn't love me anymore. I regretted it.
I feel really bad for Nathan.
I regretted that I mourned for Hannah so long. I regret the grief. I regret all the days I slept through because of it. Had I known she didn't love me anymore, things would have been different. I'm a bit angry now. If I had that day over again, I may just still pull out in front of the driver.
My gosh, Nathan.
Can we maybe not talk about Hannah anymore? And thanks for the dating advice, by the way.
No worries.
You told me not to look for anyone else until I was ready. So I didn't. I've just been sitting at home, reading Hannah's diary, stewing. I ordered a pizza. A nice girl delivered it. I didn't notice Dr. Dekker had a paper spike. I haven't really seen more than a foot in front of me since Hannah died. I've told you all I know about Dr. Dekker. He started out good, then turned a bit crazy towards the end. When you start giving people more problems as a therapist, that's a bit crazy.
Indeed. Nathan.
I think that he possibly cursed other people, a bit like he cursed me. Sometimes you could see he was bursting to tell me about it, but he couldn't. He was ecstatic with power. Curse, or remembered. I was hoping he'd forget. It's going to sound crazy. Dr. Dekker said I would never be able to move forward until I came to terms with my grief. And so from this point on, I start to relive the same day over and over again until I made something of it. I believed him.
That's the problem.
I didn't want to believe him. I remember I said, you can't just say things and they happen. He laughed and laughed. I think he was going mad. He said he'd give me a demonstration.
Ready?
He held his hand outstretched and told me to look at the flame. there was no flame. And then there was. He was holding a flame in his hand that had come out of nowhere. And he tried to hypnotize me to make me forget it.
That blew my mind as well.
He'd become bored of me, so I got much of my insight from calls or messages he'd take during our sessions. I think because he hypnotized me, he didn't want to play with me anymore, so I got basic therapist. He told me lots of people get depression, to become more active, to see more people. And although he wouldn't always be there to listen, Jaya would be. Yeah, I talked to her quite a lot. I'm not sure how many days of that she'd remember. She seemed to care, which is more I can say for Dekker. I started out with depression. Now I seem to repeat days. Even if you don't believe the repeat days, then I clearly have extra mental health problems that he's given me. I didn't forget seeing the flame. He wanted me to forget it all, but I didn't. For whatever reason, he couldn't undo what he'd done. I was scared. I pretended like the hypnosis had worked. I was scared what Dr. Dekker would do to me if he found out I still knew. So I had to play along, keep coming to the sessions, pretend I hadn't seen what he'd done. It was awful, because I was suffering through the same days over and over again, but I couldn't talk to him about it, because he'd know.
I'm okay. Thanks for asking. It's rent day, and I always feel a little blue on rent day.
Okay.
You've got a good memory, Doctor. Let's talk dreams.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll dream about a light. Deep in the ocean somewhere. I head towards it because it's warm and glowing, like a beacon. And when I'm at the bottom, it's the most beautiful thing, like a welcoming sun, like I'm home. And then I wake up.
I'm sorry. I really need the cough. So,
I've had no blackouts, and I haven't been to the beach since our last session.
good.
But I think I will today.
No.
Do you want to come with me to the beach?
No.
It's so beautiful. It calls me. It's like I'm in a trance. What does the dream mean, Doctor?
No.
Dr. Dekker used to put my checks on that thing. I guess someone thought they weren't getting value for money.
The fuck?
I actually don't have a lot of money. Sometimes a therapy check would bounce, but Dr. Dekker would be okay with it. Oh, my checks are fine though, don't worry. I'm not broke. Men buy me drinks at bars though. Sometimes I'll get away with not paying at restaurants. Isn't that how it is for everybody?
No.
I mainly like drive-thrus. I don't like crowds, and I find it difficult to stay in the same place for too long. I guess I'm a fidget.
Okay.
Crowds at nightclubs and bars are different. The lights are dim. You can slink around without attracting too much attention.
Depends.
Sometimes I'll kiss a guy in a club, and then he just follows me. Wherever I go. It's creepy. I don't want everyone seeing that. They follow me wherever I go. Anywhere. Where do you think they follow me, Doctor?
I follow her to the beach.
It depends where they follow me. If they follow me home, they bang on the door for an hour or so, then leave. Other places, they just disappear. I don't see them again. They don't just disappear into thin air. I think they return to the place I found them. But I've not run into the same person twice.
Okay, let's move on. Elin!
I'm fine. Work's fine. Hilda's fading fast. Terry's Terry.
Oh, you don't
Oh,
have
you'd
the
be pleased to
painted.
know I don't have the locket anymore. I gave it back. All of it. Every single keepsake.
Good. Well done.
It's true then. I'd heard Dr. Dekker was stabbed, but I didn't know for sure. It's weird. That whoever did it would choose the paper spike. Dr. Dekker used to play with it in our sessions sometimes. You know, pick it up, handle it while we talked. I remember once, he pushed the spike through his skin. At this bit here, between his thumb and his finger. He said he didn't think I'd mind the sight of blood, being a nurse and all that, but actually, there wasn't any.
Okay.
I was a bit freaked out. At first, I thought it was a trick. A magic trick, you know? Like some kind of therapeutic test. Show the patient this retractable spike and see how they react. But it wasn't. The spike was real.
Okay.
Dr. Dekker gave me the paper spike to try. It wasn't fake. It was pretty sharp, actually. I don't know how he did it. He said he just thought that it wouldn't hurt him, so it didn't.
Okay.
Terry seems to have backed down since I gave the keepsakes back.
Good.
Actually, it doesn't seem like she's been very well. Not her usual self. Maybe she's got a bug or something. Hilda's nearing the end. She's been sleeping a lot, not eating much. She hasn't been that argumentative either. Although, she did give me a vicious scratch yesterday. It was nothing. I was just trying to give her meds. It's hard, you know? I'm trying to help her, but she keeps fighting me. It'll be better after she's seen her daughter. I've decided I'm going to do it tonight. She hasn't got much time left. You know the answer to that, Doctor. What have we been talking about? What can I do for Hilda that will make it all better? That's the plan. I know, it sounds unbelievable, like
I
I'm
got my
making
throat,
it
I'm
up.
sorry.
I wish I could prove it to you somehow. We could try shifting now. Think of someone you really love. It might help if you close your eyes. Are you thinking of them? Can you picture them? Okay, hold on. work. On the bright side, that probably means you're not going to die anytime soon.
Hopefully not.
It's tricky. I mean, I'll sound exactly like Hilda's daughter, but I try and keep it vague because I don't become her. I don't know what she would really say. I say things like, it's okay, don't be scared, I love you, Mum, or I love you, Dad. But it doesn't really matter what their relationship's like because it's not really them. I always do the Disney version. The best, most loving version. That's what my patients want to hear. And maybe deep down they know it's not the truth, but it's got to be better than the reality. Does it really matter if it isn't the truth? Isn't it worth it if it brings them peace? Tell me honestly, Doctor, do you really think that what I'm doing is wrong? So you're saying I should let Hilda die without seeing her daughter one last time?
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do that, Doctor. I'd be letting her down. I'd have to think about it.
Elin, you gotta stop, honey. That's my job as a therapist. Yes, I checked everything. So, you know the drill. Before I move on to the next day, I'm gonna stop the episode right here. Thank you so much for watching. I really, really, really appreciate it, and I'll see you soon.